So osteoporosis, lots of problems in our country, in the world actually, with osteoporosis, particularly as our population ages. This is primarily a disease of women, though men get osteoporosis too. Women suffer more from it than men. And as we age, we get weaker in our muscles and we get weaker in our bones, and it causes problems. If you have a hip fracture, your risk of dying after that goes up considerably. So we try to limit fractures any way we can. So there are some risk factors that cannot be modified, and I list those first, and that's age. I don't know anyone that's been able to modify their age yet. Maybe get old faster, but not get old slower particularly. And sex, some people try to modify that, but that doesn't really help your risk for osteoporosis. Frame size, I don't know anyone that can modify their frame size much. And your race, that's, you can't fix that in family history. You know, if we could just choose our parents a little more carefully, things would go well, but that's difficult to do as well. I'll just turn that off. So what can we do something about? Well, the first one on the list is calcium, and this is controversial. You might be interested to know that we no longer recommend calcium supplementation in a pill form. And the reason for that is because of the following. If you took 1,000 women and you put them all on calcium supplementation, you would reduce fractures by about 26 fewer fractures in the next 10 years. But that wouldn't be hip fractures, it would be fractures of the forearm or the humerus. But in that same group of 1,000 women, you would have an additional 14 heart attacks from the calcium, an additional 10 strokes, and 13 deaths. Doesn't sound like a good trade. 24 heart attacks or strokes versus 26 fractures, not hip fractures. Calcium supplementation has not been shown to reduce hip fractures. So we don't recommend it anymore. And who's we? That's the U.S. Preventive Task Force. That was published in the Journal of American Medical, in Annals of Internal Medicine in 2013. One of the lead articles, lead journals in the country on internal medicine, and a very sound article. So if you're taking calcium supplementation, unless you have something other than osteoporosis, stop. Now, does that mean you shouldn't get calcium? No, you need calcium, but you should get it in your diet. And you say, well, what's the difference? You know, everything we supplement, we have to think, would it be better for us in the food than in a pill form? And almost everything studied is better in a food than it is in a pill form. Then there's a controversy about how much calcium we should have in our diet. The people over there in England will tell you that you need 700 milligrams a day. In the United States, we say 1,200. Well, where's the science? Well, the science is somewhere around 700. Great Britain is right. Taking more will give you no lower risk of fracture, unfortunately. So most of us get enough calcium if we eat thoughtfully. And if you're taking calcium supplements, I'd recommend you stop. If you want further information on that, look up Annals of Internal Medicine, 2013, the Preventive Health Task Force. I don't want to save someone a forearm fracture and give them a fatal heart attack. It doesn't sound like a good trade to me. Next thing is vitamin D. This is also controversial. We know that the better your vitamin D level, the lower your risk of fracture. But if you supplement, that doesn't seem to help, unless your vitamin D level is less than 20. Now, you'll see all sorts of normals in the laboratory. If you look at the normals on a lab sheet, some will start at 20, some start at 18, some start at 30. Why the disagreement? Well, normals, when you're talking about vitamin D, are not, well, let's take the population and find what's normal for the population. Someone's gotten in there and thought, well, what's good for the population, not what's normal. And that's where you start at 30. If you look at the National Academy of Science data, they say there's no evidence of harm from a vitamin D level 20 or above. And there's no evidence of benefit if you get to 25 versus 20. If you get to 19, harm. If you get to 10, harm. If you're down at 2, like I had a patient at 2, big problems. He came into my office, he was a welder, and he said, I don't know what's wrong, but I can't squeeze the welding handle to put a stick into it anymore. He was an arc welder. And sure enough, he's a great big guy, and you'd think he could do that. He couldn't, so we got a vitamin D level, and it was 2. And so I supplemented him, and within 6 weeks he could weld again without someone else putting the stick in his hand grip for him. So if your vitamin D level is low, I recommend supplementation. Well, how much? You need 100 international units on average to move your vitamin D level up 1 point. So if your vitamin D level is 15, and you want to go to 20, you need at least 500 international units a day to get it up there if you have normal absorption. So what I'm saying is I would not recommend you taking vitamin D unless you've had your level checked, because we do know that excess amounts of vitamin D can cause problems. Muscle weakness, kidney stones, and other difficulties. Anytime you take a supplement, take it thoughtfully and carefully. Don't just take it willy-nilly because it's on the shelf. You can get yourself into trouble. Where do we normally get vitamin D from? Sunshine. Can you get vitamin D from the sun now? Not if you live in Maine. Sorry, you have to go south. And there's some studies that show that people that live in northern climates, if they're used to taking a vacation in the winter in the sun, south of here, their bone density is better than if they don't take a vacation in the sun. So now you have a doctor advising you to tell your spouse, we got to go south for, yeah. But if you go south and you don't expose your skin to the sun, you're not going to get vitamin D. Well, what about skin cancer? Yeah, the skin cancer rates go up if you get burns. But the interesting thing is people that get skin cancer are less liable to get internal cancers. Prostate cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer. So I'd rather have a cancer I can see than one I can't. So I say get sunshine, don't get a burn. Question. Cloudy, you still get vitamin D, just not quite as much. Don't get a burn, but get sun. And ladies, I want you to all to start a new fashion thing where we go with low back dresses. Because we don't walk around like this. We tend to be more like this, and you can get a lot of sun on your back. And so, new styles, please. Low backs, not low necks.
Do you still absorb it through sunscreen?
You do not absorb it through sunscreen. What I recommend is that you go out with, the appropriate attire for the area, whatever that means, and get some sunshine until, you get just a little pink, and then put your shirt on. A shirt's great sunscreen. If it's not a see-through shirt or something like that. All right, so vitamin D, get sunshine, and measure your level if you live in Maine. Now, if you measure your level in September, it's going to be higher than if you measure it in April, right? So keep that in mind. If you're on the border and it's September, you're not going to make it all the way through the winter. Although you do store vitamin D, it will drop through the winter. And you can get vitamin D up till about the 1st of November, and you can start getting vitamin D again about the middle of February. Although you got to be brave to do it.
How often should you have your vitamin D checked? Once a year?
I think once would be a good start. Yeah, and if it's low, then you need to supplement and have it rechecked to make sure that you don't have an absorption problem. All right. There's some evidence that if you get the vitamin D from the sunshine, you get vitamin D isomers that are also helpful that you don't get in a pill. It's like everything else. If you supplement beta carotene, you're going to interfere with the other 400 different carotenoids. So we know that supplementing beta carotene and vitamin A is a bad idea. It causes cancer risks to go up. Next, strength and fitness. I don't care what your bone density is, you'll be better off if you're strong. And if your bones are weak, you're better off if you're strong. Why? Because it's the falls that cause the fractures. And anything that you can do to avoid a fall will help you. How do I know it's the falls? Because they did a really nice little experiment in nursing homes. They took the elderly patients that were in the nursing homes and they put foam pads in their underwear. And they cut fracture rates by 30 to 40% just by putting foam in their underwear. Well, that's pretty impressive. That's better than any pill we have. So we're going to have low back dress and padded underwear. And, we'll all have a little more shape, I guess. Simple things make a difference. I can just see in town, get Dr. Howe's padded underwear. All right. There's some other things, and balance is really important with that. If you're not doing balance exercises and you're 70, start. Or if you're having trouble, start doing balance exercises. There's lots of them that you can do. So that's fitness, and I've covered balance. Posture is another one. Have you noticed that children are like this and then you get like this? And you go like that? You're going to fall more easily if you're like that. So keeping your hamstrings nice and stretched out so that you're not like this will help you. So spend some time lying on the floor, getting flat on the floor, getting your head down. I have patients that cannot lie down on my exam table without 2 pillows because their head doesn't go back. Don't let that happen to you. I fight it too. Already I'm noticing I'm like this, Get your head back, get your chest up, keep over your feet. That'll really, really help with posture. Stretch your hamstrings. That's really important as well. And Stretch your calf muscles. Do stretches on both calf muscles and hamstrings, and will help your posture and your balance. If you're like this all the time, that puts a wedging on your spine, and then you're going to have fractures, and that's no good. So stay upright. Very important. Alcohol and tobacco and caffeine all cause calcium loss. All cause calcium loss. So if you're having a cup a day of coffee, I'm not going to fuss. But if you're having 3 or 4, you'll have enough calcium loss to cause problems. And I've already told you that taking calcium supplements isn't going to help. It'll cause other problems. So keep the calcium that you have. Then there are dietary factors other than those. Salt intake. For every amount of sodium that you take into your body that you don't need, you have to excrete that sodium. And when sodium is excreted in the urine, it draws calcium along with it. That's why high salt diets are one of the major causes of kidney stones. You think, well, I have too much calcium, that's why I had kidney stones. Well, that can do it, but it's mostly too much sodium. And sodium can cause osteoporosis. So limit your sodium intake to about 2,300 milligrams a day. That's about a teaspoon. Keep it down. Your blood pressure will be better. Your arteries will be less stiff. And your bones will be better. Antioxidants and free radicals. Well, this is a really interesting one that you don't hear about much with osteoporosis. There are 2 kinds of cells in the bones that help us remodel the bone. They're osteoclasts and osteoblasts. Clast with a C, blast with a B. Osteoclast, osteoblast. The osteoblasts build bone. The osteoclasts tear it down. How do they tear it down? They tear it down with free radicals. Free radicals were not in Berkeley in the 60s. They are molecules, not molecules, but like oxygen or other atoms with an unpaired electron. And they cause inflammation in our bodies. And those free radicals are what osteoclasts use to break bone down. And so if you have a lot of free radicals, you will break bone down more rapidly. That's why diets that are high in this soup that we had tonight help prevent bone loss, rich in antioxidants. That's why, you want all those deep greens, not just for the calcium in them, but they're high in antioxidants, damp down the free radicals. You want the sweet potatoes. You want the garlic, you want the onions, all of those are rich in antioxidants. You want fruit. If you double your fruit intake, your bone density on average will be 5% higher. That's a simple thing you can do. One study that was done with prunes, which are really rich in antioxidants. And people that they studied this group of people, the California Prune Board. How'd you like to sit on that? The California Prune Board, subsidized the study, and they gave people prunes every day for a number of years and found that the ones that ate prunes versus the ones that didn't had better bone density. How did prunes work? It wasn't the calcium, it wasn't the vitamin D, it was the antioxidants. Blueberries will work. Any of the antioxidant-rich foods that decrease the free radicals in your body will work to help preserve your bones. And so it's really, really important. But let's talk about a whole nother area. You think, well, dense bones are good bones, right? Well, that's true, but here's an experiment for you. What if I had a crystal vase in this hand and a plastic vase in this hand? Which one's denser? Crystal, right? Yeah. But if I drop them, which is going to break? The crystal's going to break. But it's denser, it shouldn't. But it's more brittle. Is there something that can make your bones more brittle? Yes, because bones are more than calcium. They also have protein in them, particularly collagen. And you can eat in such a way that your collagen, or the protein in your bone, gets more brittle. And that's the whole area of age products. You see it there, age products. That stands for advanced glycated end products. What are those? You can get those two ways. You can get those from eating a lot of sugar. Advanced glycated, gly means sugar, end products. If I took sugar in this hand and I took gelatin in this hand and I put them together in a bowl and walked away, came back the next day, I would find that the protein had sugar attached to it, non-enzymatically. And when sugar attaches to protein, it changes the structure of the protein, and the protein becomes stiffer, more brittle, if you will. So one of the ways you can age, or if you have a spouse that you're a little tired of, you can help them along to that aging by giving them a lot of sugar. And that sugar will attach to protein in their body and will age them. That's why diabetics age more rapidly than the general population. If you take someone at 50 years of age and make them a diabetic, or they become a diabetic at 50, their life expectancy will be reduced by about 9 years from this process. Age products age you. That's protein with sugar attached. You can also get protein with sugar attached in the food you eat. If you eat food that has carbohydrate and protein, or carbohydrate, protein, and fat in it, and you turn up the heat on it, cook it at high temperature, you will glycate it. And I've talked about this before. Important to remember, this impacts your bones. And so people that have a diet that's high in glycated end products, fried foods, broiled foods. For instance, if you take a potato and you boil it, that has about 17 kilounits of age products per 100 grams. If you take that same potato and French fry it, it goes up to 1,544. And if you do that with chicken, take chicken and you boil it, put some lemon in there. Why put lemon? Because lemon has compounds in it that help prevent glycation, as do most vegetables. But put some lemon in it and boil it. You've got age products of 900 per 100 grams. But if you take the chicken and fry it, it goes up to 9,000. And if you barbecue it, it goes up to 18,000. So who's going to get the osteoporosis? The people that eat barbecued or fried or whatever food, because they're consuming more age products, and that goes in, and then you build your body out of those things. So if you build your body with stiff proteins, you're going to be stiff. Really simple. And if your bones are stiff and you fall, you're going to break more easily. That's the age products thing. Here's another one, phosphate-containing sodas and meats. If you have high phosphate intake, your bones are going to be more brittle. Bottom line. You're going to lose calcium because of that phosphate, because you have to buffer that phosphate when you excrete it in your urine with calcium. And so you're going to lose calcium. And here's my favorite one. I saved it for last, oxytocin. If you look on the internet and on Google Scholar or one of those, and look at osteoporosis and oxytocin. The last 10 years there have been a lot of studies done on this. Well, what's oxytocin? Oxytocin is the hormone that women release when they nurse their babies, or just before and during labor. They release a lot of oxytocin. And for years we thought, oh, that's just a female hormone around having babies and nursing and all of that. But now we know it's not. It does, it's released in men and in women, that aren't pregnant. Men aren't pregnant, I hope, and the women, you know, as they're postmenopausal, certainly aren't. Does it have any effect? Yes. We know that the higher your oxytocin level is, the better your bones are, generally speaking. And the lower it is, people with severe osteoporosis have low oxytocin levels. And so, do you have to be nursing to get your oxytocin level up? No, you don't. In fact, you can cuddle and it'll go up. And so, you know, husbands, if your wife has osteoporosis, it's partially your fault. More cuddling. This works for women. It doesn't work quite as well for men. It doesn't seem to have the same effect on our bones as it does on women's. Interestingly, if you don't have a spouse, don't give up hope. They found that if you are patting your dog, your oxytocin level goes up. So if you don't have a husband, just get a dog. They're about the same, right? No, but seriously, cuddling will push a man's oxytocin level up, and it'll push a woman's oxytocin level up. Hugs are good. It's good for your bones. You know, my wife and I we didn't know this information, but for years, my wife said, hugs are good for your bones, and now I know she was right all this time. So just remember that oxytocin. So here's some recommendations for you in closing. Stay or get strong and do balance exercises regularly. No matter who your parents are or how old you are or all of your risk factors, stay or get strong and stay balanced. Number 2, avoid alcohol, tobacco, and caffeine. You don't have to have those. At least minimize them. Number 3, get sunshine. Get your vitamin D level measured before you supplement. I didn't say you have to measure it, although it's not a bad idea living in this area. But don't supplement without getting your vitamin D level measured. Number 4, calculate your FRAX score. What's that? Just go online and look up FRAX score. And under the Sheffield University, they have a really nice calculator, and you can calculate what your risk of fracture in the next 10 years is. And if your risk of hip fracture is greater than 2.5% to 3% in the next 10 years, consider getting a bone density study. Why? Because a bone density study is better than a FRAX score. That's just to calculate how often should you have a bone density study. It depends completely on what the results are.
But if you're in the osteopenia or osteoporosis category.
That's a really wide range. Okay, so the only reason to get a test is so you know what to do, right? And so I say calculate your FRAX score first, and if you're fine on that, don't spend money on a bone density. It's simple to do. It doesn't cost you any money to calculate your FRAX score. So do that first, and if it meets these criteria, go ahead and ask your doctor for a bone density. And then you have to know something about T-scores, which is what we use here. And you'll notice there, I say number 5, consider bisphosphonates if your T-score is less than minus 2.5. Now, if your T-score is minus 2 and you're 60, I'm going to repeat it in probably 5 to 10 years. It depends on whether you listen or not, how soon I'm going to repeat it, and whether you're doing your balance exercises and that sort of thing. I didn't say take a bisphosphonate, I said consider it. There are problems with the bisphosphonates. Those are, you know, you probably heard of them all, Fosamax and so on. And the one I tend to use if patients have really bad bone densities and won't listen is the IV reclassed, because if you don't take your medicine regularly, then it doesn't work well. Whereas reclass, you go in once a year for 3 years and get an IV, and I know you've gotten it, and I know you're going to get the benefit. where I don't know, I can't track you whether you take your pills or not. And the IV is cheaper than the other, and there are less problems with the esophagus. Fosamax and some of those, or alendronate and etc., they can cause esophageal perforation and lots of problems. You can get osteonecrosis of the jaw, and all your teeth can fall out. And so sometimes they're necessary, but they have risks. So I said consider. I didn't say take it, consider. And then here's another one. Avoid excess salt, aged products, and eat a diet rich in antioxidants, and don't forget prunes. But any rich colored fruit will do. And thank you, Lynn. Almonds is the next one there. Lynn's right on it. Almonds. They did some studies on almonds and found that in people that ate 60 grams of almonds a day, if you drew their serum and dripped it on bone culture, it markedly reduced osteoclast activity. They haven't done the studies long-term yet with almonds. That would be expensive because almonds are expensive. And they have to be raw almonds, not cooked, not roasted, raw almonds. And 60 grams is a lot. I think 30 grams would probably do. How many is 30 grams or an ounce? 23 almonds. I counted it out. No, about 20 almonds or a little handful a day will help your bones.
So if they're roasted, you lose all the benefits?
You don't lose all the benefits, but they're not good for you because of the age products. If you take any nut and you roast it, you will triple the age. You go up 8-fold in the age product level. So eat your nuts.
You haven't added any oil. You just put them in the oven and roast them.
If you roast them in oil particularly, that's what happens, not just low temperature roasting, but if you roast them in oil, and almost all nuts that you buy are roasted in oil. Why? Because nuts are expensive, and if you roast them in oil, they gain weight, and then they can sell them to you for more, and they're making money. So there's an angle to everything. So eat that handful of almonds a day. They're rich in calcium, and no one's asked what foods are rich in calcium, but almonds are one. Sesame seeds, they're very rich in calcium. This morning, Lynn and I had our breakfast, and I was thinking about the lecture tonight, and I had a little soy milk, which is rich in calcium, and we had granola that had sesame seeds in it, and it had flax seeds in it for your joints to keep you limber, and then we put some berries on it for your antioxidants, and I was feeling pretty good, and then I ate the soup, and that's even better. So, there are things that you can do very easily that taste good and will really help and stay strong, and you should do well. And remember, cuddle more. It's good for the bones. Or get a dog. It's cheaper than a husband. Free radicals. They are formed when you burn things. Okay? Well, what do you mean burn things? Everything we eat, you have to burn. We're an internal combustion engine. And you burn, whenever you metabolize your food, free radicals are formed. And if you're eating food that isn't rich in antioxidants take care of free radicals. Free radicals are like fires, sparks in your body that burn things, and antioxidants are like firemen that go around and put them out. That's how it works. So that's why I recommend that whatever you eat, it be rich in antioxidants. If you take a pill, it doesn't work. You need the antioxidants mixed with the food that you're going to burn. Makes sense. You want the antioxidants in close proximity to the fire. And so you're far better off to have sweet potatoes and kale than you are to have sugar pops and take a pill because it doesn't work. Yeah. Question?
The squash is certainly something, and I have a lot of butternut squash
The best way to preserve the antioxidant capacity is low temperature cooking, which is boiling. Yeah, you preserve about 50% more of the antioxidant. But any way you eat squash or sweet potatoes is fine because they're so rich. Just don't avoid eating them. But low temperature cooking is the best. That's why a stew like tonight is really good. It's more like boiling. It's lower temperature than baking, but your best is to boil. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any connection between spinal stenosis and osteoporosis?
Yes, there is some connection. Spinal stenosis can be caused from multiple different things. You can rupture a disc and push things out. You can get arthritis and anything that narrows the spinal column will cause spinal stenosis. And spinal stenosis is no fun. If you have it, you know it's no fun. Because you walk and it hurts. And the further you walk, the worse it hurts. And the only help is to get a cart and lean on it like at the grocery store, because if you're bent forward, it doesn't hurt as bad, but then you're more liable to fall. So it's a mess. Spinal stenosis is one thing that I do occasionally recommend back surgery for. In competent hands, it can be a real blessing. Because spinal stenosis can cripple you. My father had surgery and had a wonderful outcome, and then post-op had poor care and got an infection and ended up worse than he was before the surgery. So be careful. You need to go to a good center, a good surgeon, good post-op care, but surgery for that can be good. Osteoporosis can cause a problem in that you can compress your vertebral body, shift them, and then have more problems with narrowing of the column.
The lack of calcium is not connected with the two?
Lack of calcium is connected with osteoporosis. If you don't have enough in the diet, you're going to be at higher risk for osteoporosis. Don't leave thinking I'm not in favor of calcium. I am. But as with most supplements, you're better off to get it in your food than you are in a pill. Because if you get it in a pill form, it increases your risk of vascular disease. If you get it in your food, it doesn't seem to. Food's very complex, and you're better to eat it like nature provides it for you. That's what we've learned. I wish I could just get a pill that would do everything for you, but we haven't found that yet. I'm looking for it. No, I'm not really. Yes?
What about a trampoline?
Trampoline is a good exercise. You know, I didn't mention types of exercise, but you need impact exercise, weight-bearing exercise. Swimming and cycling aren't that good for osteoporosis. They're good for strength and balance. But a trampoline is fine, walking's fine. Jump rope, that's really good if you can still jump rope because you're banging. And that's what causes calcium or bone to get stronger is compression of the bone. It's called the piezoelectric effect. When you compress a crystal, it gives a little electrical current. The bone, when compressed, gives off an electrical current, and that leads to the deposition of calcium. So anything that compresses the bone strengthens the bone. Miriam Nelson did the original studies, it's probably been 20 years ago now, at Tufts University, showing that women with osteoporosis could get better with regular weight-bearing exercise. But that was women going to the gym 3 times a week and pumping iron. And I recommend it. I think our gym should, they should kick all the young guys out and get all the women in there pumping iron with their husband. Running would be good. What I recommend is if you're older and you want to jog and you haven't been doing it, is walk down the hill and run up. Why? Because you're less likely to fall running up the hill, and it's a lot easier on your knees. It's harder. That's why you should do it. Yeah. So when Lynn and I go for a walk, that's what we often do, is we have a hilly driveway, and so we walk down the hill and run up the hill. And like I have said before, I used to run through the woods like a fox, and now I run like a porcupine, but I'm still running. Yeah, those of you that have seen a porcupine can get that picture quick. Yeah.